I work for Network for Europe. We work with the third sector around two kinds of European funding, ESF and ERDF. So I'm not going to talk about anything other than that. It's just going to be focused on those activities. And I want to cover three main points. Let me work out how to do this. Talking about the third sector, what is it, how it's worked with Europe, and what happens next with that. Some of this is going to be pretty obvious to some of you. Oh, great. Let's see if this works.
Have I got one too far?
Probably. Can you go back one more? Right. We've got three sectors. We've got the public sector, private sector, third sector. They've each got their specialities, their good points, their bad points. Public sector is typically very accountable. It's responsible for particular areas, particularly the local authority areas, for example, and so on. It can be slow, it can be bureaucratic, meetings that take forever, it can take a long time to do things. Private sector is accountable to shareholders who typically want it to make money, to make a profit. Doesn't really matter where and how for some of them. It's very flexible about where it's based. It can move out, it can move around, it can change. It's very flexible in what it does. And we've got the third sector, which in the best of positions is actually the best of the two. It combines the accountability of the public sector, but it also has the flexibility and the rapidity of action and the focus that you get with private sector. The other bit is that, and the more I think of it, the more important it is, it's actually very keen on partnership working. I heard part of a programme on the radio about a week ago about charities, and the guy talking seemed to think charities were acting like businesses. So they have one thing they're going to do, and they do that in competition for everything else. We're actually used to working together. We don't particularly work in competition. We actually share experience and understanding. And over time, we pulled public sector and private sector together to do things across Europe. If we look back, I'm conscious I've got to hit timing on this, so I might speed up a little bit. If we look back at Liverpool, historically it had extremes of wealth and poverty. It had a big thriving port, had people who made a lot of cash. Some of those saw it as important to carry out charitable activities to feed money back. And we've got Liverpool CVS, which supports the third sector in Liverpool, goes back more than 100 years now in looking at pulling this together. So there's a history of people coming together to do things. We've got, I think, a really strong and active third sector in the Liverpool City region. And we typically work together to tackle things, such as issues around young people needs that we've been hearing about before. So we got collectively involved with European structural funds going back quite some time. And they have got different words. Some of them actually seem to sound better in French than English, but no matter. Liverpool had been going down for 30 years. We'd lost 1-2% of our population each year. We had just about every source of funding or things dropped in, typically from above for a year or two and disappeared. We then had Europe talking about 7-year strategies. We had them insisting on partnership working. We said you've got to make decisions at the lowest possible level. And we got lumps of money coming in. The first lot, when we had Objective 2 status, there was virtually no involvement of third sector at all. Didn't really work. In fact, we dropped down from Objective 2 status to a worse position, which is something called Objective 1, which is the bottom. You can't go below that. Quite a number of us thought, well, we haven't been involved before, let's do it properly. In the first Objective 2, I was told we couldn't involve women in that because women were not involved in the economy, so there was no point. So, this wasn't very long ago. So, third sector got heavily involved. One of the things was something like pathways, £1 in every 6 or €1 in every 6 went directly to organisations that were bottom-up, locally based, community development, and so on. A lot of focused small projects. And we had, I think, a dramatic change in Liverpool. Suddenly there was a bit more hope. I used to go out around here and count the cranes. And you could get up to 15 or 16 cranes working on different projects in the store. And cranes is probably not the best definition of things getting better, but it was working. So we've had quite a lot of funding over the years. At the moment, for reasons that I'm not going into, we didn't argue for much money this time, so we've only got only 200 million coming from Europe in the current 7-year programme. Half of this is something called European Social Fund, which is what Colette was talking about. It's around human resources, it's about people. We've committed 65 million of that so far. 25 million of that 65, 40%, is directly run by third sector organisations, like Marseille Youth Association and so on. So there's a big involvement of the third sector in European money at the moment. I think we're putting it to really good use. I think we're putting a difference. But what happens next? So something called European Pillar of Social Rights was agreed across Europe last year. It was agreed by the European Parliament, which are probably where we're democratic. We elect people from England and the UK. The Council, which are the ministers from the different governments across Europe, and the Commission. 3 parts to this: equal opportunities, access to the labour market, fair working conditions, and social protection and inclusion. You really want to have a look at this. It's a very short document, a few headings. It's something we've signed up to across Europe, as long as we're still there, across Europe, we will be delivering this and making things better. Okay, let's put that one side for a second. Oh yeah, that's a slightly larger version. But go on again.
Next one.
Yeah. So the next 7 years, the rest of Europe, apart from the Brits, have been getting together to plan what happens next. They published essentially the 7-year budget, or the proposal for the budget, beginning of May. They then published a set of regulations at the end of May. European Social Fund, which is the key fund that we've been involved in, the third sector in Liverpool, now becomes ESF Plus. It includes a range of other things. It includes a lot more on social enterprise, which is, again, expanding dramatically across Europe. It says rather than minimum of 20% of the funds go for social inclusion, minimum 25%. It covers a range of cross-border health issues. We're presumably not going to be involved in cross-border issues anymore. And it even includes things like food for people and resources for people in poverty. So our ESF Plus is going to become even better, assuming we can still get it. If we leave, we won't have the about £10,000 million that we get on ESF and ERDF over 7 years. So we've got the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, announced in the Conservative Manifesto, and it's using this structural money specifically to reduce inequalities. So it's going to do the same sort of thing, same as this. And we're talking about that money being allocated from the British government through the Shared Prosperity Fund. But we haven't worked out the details, so there are meetings going on at the moment. There's one next week in the Northwest to try and make sure this works okay. That's the quote, if you want it, from the manifesto. Okay. Written statement came out on the 24th of July, just as Parliament was breaking up. It first looked at strengthening local enterprise partnerships. They actually overlap. They have a range of issues about paid membership, so they're not open. There are difficulties such as what happened to the Cambridge Peterloo one that had to be closed down abruptly, the chair and so on. Range of things that have happened. So the LEPs need to be brought up because they're going to be the ones delivering inclusion, delivering shared prosperity so on, working with the combined authorities and mayoral ones. They will have a single mission, the labs, to promote productivity, according to this document. And we'll cover the £10,000 million around inclusion by raising productivity. As far as I can tell from the document that's going to happen with this, then so long as we can get the LEPs, which ignores the third sector, it's the private sector and the public sector working together to increase productivity, then there will be a magical sort of trickling down that will get rid of poverty and inclusion. That's where we're up to at the moment. That's the document about the LEPs, and just to finish off, I've raised what is going to happen with 10,000 million. That's it, thanks.